Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome, Welcome to the Gameweek 27 pod of the FPL Wire. I'm your host, Zoph, and I'm joined by my co-host, Late Riser and Fixture of, aka Pras. As you can see, Fixture of is quite excited for this one. How are you doing, buddy?
My son's going to love it. I need to do this as well then. Because he's a SpongeBob SquarePants fan. Yeah, excited, very happy. Also a little disappointed because everything we expected happened, right? I mean, these were the 4 fixtures everybody was talking about happening. I think a little bit more masala, of one other random fixture.
A lot of things got left late, right?
Nice.
I was just checking the scores, just rolling around it back, I just scrolled up. So Chelsea scored late, United scored late, so we were very close from it.
Exactly. So something would have been nice, but yeah, this is also good. And what I like is now everybody is posting, this is my chip strategy, and it makes sense. And then people are fighting, no, this one is better. Actually, there's a lot of good strategies that work, and that's a nice place to be.
Absolutely. How's FPL been for you guys? LR, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. This is the reason why we signed Messi, Zoph. This is his time of the season. When chip strategy season, when doubles and blanks come, you're supposed to just pass the ball to Messi. So I'm here to chill, sit, and spectate and watch Pras do his business here.
Please,
Nice.
guys. I mean, this is getting too much. I mean, it's fine. We'll go through it, but yeah, lots to discuss. So excited.
I can't actually quite figure out the difference between the color on behind Pras on his poster and his face right now. It's fully red. I don't.
I went for a run actually. That was the reason, but also because I'm blushing.
All right.
Nice. Cool. Should we get started off?
Yeah, sure.
Let's go. Sponsor plug up first.
All the members stats that you see on our podcast are from the fantasy football members area. If you haven't become a member already, it's a great time to become a member because you can game weeks are coming thick and fast, member articles are coming thick and fast. And if you want to support us, then you can, and you want to become a member, then you can click on the link in the description below.
And as you know, the FPL Wire has partnered with NordVPN. We have already mentioned in the past the privacy features, threat protections, access to global content libraries. You guys already know about this. Now they have a new offer that's running from Feb 7th to the 20th of March, where you get a discount on 2 years membership, an additional 4 extra months and some gifts. Now, what are these gifts? For the USA, UK, Australia and Canada, users in these countries who purchase any of the 2-year plans will receive Uber Eats vouchers for $10, $20 or $30 depending on the package you select. For other countries, the deal includes 4 extra months on the 2-year plan plus a 3-month coupon to share. Sign up today. Right. Let's kick off, Pras, and right at the top, let's get a like and subscribe plug, please.
Yeah, I think I would even go beyond that, and I would say we've talked about the companies that support us, but also us. I mean, if people who are listening, sometimes with these chip pods, you get new listeners. People are thinking about things, and you stumble upon us. Do consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel. We do weekly content, and the three of us are different but all engaged, and I would be humble brag. Reasonably good FPL managers. So it's good to just chat it out. And we don't tell you what to do. We discuss things. We tell you the pros and cons of everything. And that's the podcast that we are. So if you like that kind of stuff, do subscribe, become a member if you can on YouTube or Patreon at patreon.com/the FPL Wire.
And there's a special bonus, right? We're at 29.2K subscribers, and at 30K we've decided to wear Indian. There's lots of Pras fans in the house right now. So I mean, why wouldn't you want to watch Pras in some Indian, So get those likes and subscribes happening.
Let's go. Mr. Fixture off. Let's take off.
Right. So 4 fixtures in Game Week 29, which is basically the 3 that were confirmed, right? The Burnley, Brentford, Fulham, Spurs, and Luton, Nottingham Forest. And West Ham, Aston Villa. And basically by Man United beating Nottingham Forest, the Luton Nottingham Forest fixture is now confirmed, which essentially means it's a pretty bad looking Game Week 29. But we will discuss if that means whether a free hit is worth it or not. But I mean, you guys tell me first thoughts, just 4 games in Game Week 29. Where is the upside? I mean, if you can tell me 5 players, let's say at the end of this, let's come to a conclusion of 5 players that you must have. I think most teams will hit those, right? I mean, Zoph, what do you think are the must-own guys in this game week?
I think we can pretty much identify them going by fixtures. With Brentford, I think most of us will be looking at their defense because on paper, I think clean sheet odds will probably be the highest over there since they're away to Burnley. So I'm guessing you're Reguilon, Flecken, Tony.
But without me or Pinnock.
Without me and Pinnock, exactly. It doesn't inspire. And generally, I always feel Burnley at home are capable of scoring. So I'm not too enthralled by that. Spurs will be interesting. I think you could probably even go for a triple up in attack. I don't mind that. Luton, again, obviously, they'll be more interesting because of the double in 28. And I think Forest players are possibly the ones that would be of interest, especially if you're looking to free hit. Because Luton have been looking quite leaky of late. And again, West Ham Villa is again once you want to back only the attackers. You wouldn't want the defenders from those teams.
LR, what do you think? I mean, I guess defensively you would agree, but any attackers that stand out that you think free hitters would have that others can't get to?
No, defensively, that's the point also about Game Week 29, right? You can't call a clean sheet. There's genuinely no clean sheet that any of us can confidently call in Game Week 29. And before we get to the point, in terms of if there are attackers I could identify, just in general, when I woke up and saw the results and I'm like, shit, I have just 2 players or 3 players playing in Game Week 29. I'm going to have to use my free hit on a very, very rubbish looking Game Week 29. Then I heard your pod with Alon, which I thought was tremendous. Absolutely great job that you guys did on the FML FPL pod. where I was so jealous that you already have 5 or 6 players in place. Because if you can help it, if you have 3, 4, 5, 6 players in place, then just get 8 to 11 players in Game Week 29 and see it off, because I don't see an upside. There's just not, there are difficult to call fixtures. And then I was having a chat with our beautiful co-host Zoph out here, and he was like, "You don't have 2 players, you have 3 players, and if you take 2 or 3 hits, just there's no clean sheet we can call. Screw the defense, get 7 attackers in place, and just deal with some points loss." And that just seems to make a lot more sense to me. Talking player by player and looking at picks, I mean, your money is in Spurs attack. You're maybe hoping that West Ham defensively, that Aston Villa defensively look a little leaky, maybe punt on a West Ham attacker or two, because that defense is there for the taking. They've conceded 2+ goals at home in the last 4 home games. Aston Villa attacker, Ollie Watkins, everybody will have maybe a punt on Leon Bailey or, Douglas Lewis, he who must not be named. and then you've got a Forest attacker or a Luton attacker as a punt. It's not, it's good. It's what every free hit looks like. Every year's free hit looks like, where it's a bunch of pretty rubbish players that we're picking from. When we come down to it and when we pick a team, there'll be a team to pick, but it's just not convincing.
Yep, I've got a draft up here. This is taken from the Fantasypedia Twitter feed, and it's something similar to what we mentioned, right? You get your Spurs guys, bit of West Ham, Luton, probably throw a bit of Forest in there. But none of these guys, it's like maybe like, I think if you have 6 of the 7 attackers, you're fine.
Agreed. And that's where I think the non-free hitters will get to. But I want to be careful. I don't want to come across as free hit may not be worth it, because I think there's a few benefits of free hit. The free hit benefit is everyone who's now planning not to free hit is going to ignore Bournemouth, right? Because when Game Week 28 comes, they will say, should I get Doughty or should I get Senesi? They'll say, I'll get Doughty because Doughty plays in 29. Shall I, get a Barkley or a Tavernier? Now, of course, Barkley could outscore Tavernier. That's a different discussion. But basically, by free hitting, you don't care about 29. I think the other benefit is it will delay your wildcard. So a lot of people will say, I'm just going to navigate through this and then wildcard in 31 or 30, which again, as a chip strategy, will come to. But you could then equally say that I'll just delay my wildcard and be closer to a bench boost if you have a bench boost left. So I can wildcard in 35 or even 36 and then be closer to a bench boost. There's pros and cons to each of these strategies. It just depends on how well set up you are and can you hit, like I think you summed it up perfectly. Can you hit 6 of these 7 attackers with minimal hits? And if you can get through that, also not sacrifice too much in Game Week 28 double, don't just end up with 1 or 2 doublers, attack it because it is a good double. Then I think it's okay.
Right.
Zoph, I think a good thing to do would be move to the fixture tucker, which has probable 34, 37 and 29 in place, so that we can just talk around the fixtures and what you're compromising and what when we're discussing the pros and cons. Not this one, the Ben Krellin ticker.
Okay, this one?
This one. Yeah, this one. Pras spoke about Bournemouth, and it's a good point to make, Pras, because if you're targeting Bournemouth right now, Zoph and I were just talking about this earlier, it's also the follow fixtures after 29, where it's Everton at home, Crystal Palace at home, Luton away. So people that are probably wildcarding now or targeting Bournemouth players, it's a good segue of fixtures to follow. The only problem is, if you're a manager that's ignoring Bournemouth, you don't feel nervous about it. You're like, it's okay, because Bournemouth as a team are a good team, but when it comes to FPL quality, they don't really have standout FPL players. They don't really have standout FPL picks at the moment. So that's the pro and con. I think what we should do is keep adding pointers for people to consider, because that's what we do at this point.
And Bournemouth also are a team that could double in 34 as well. So you could actually look at a dead end strategy. As Bournemouth as your central piece, where you have 3 Bournemouth in place, and then you have your big hitters, right? I mean, people will have Son regardless of free hit or not free hit. People will have Salah after this blank regardless of free hit or no free hit. So you have to then think about how the team will dead end into 34 and then you wildcard out of it. But just one caveat on Bournemouth, if we're talking about Game Week 34, we don't know if they will double or not. There are certain predictions going on right now, but actually Wolves has messed it up a lot. Wolves has messed it up because Wolves are now likely to go into the semi-final of the FA Cup. Wolves' fixture in Game Week 34 is Arsenal. So that game will either move to the midweek If that game moves to midweek, then Bournemouth can't play Wolves, which will be the double because that's the game that has been postponed from 29. So Bournemouth, there's a likelihood that they could double, but it depends on TV picks and things like that. So I wouldn't count on the Bournemouth double as the one that is a banker that will happen.
So it could be a standalone double as well, because either of those guys in Europe, they could chuck that in 35, 36, anything, right?
But 37 will be completely free. So it could, that Bournemouth Wolves could easily just fit in 37.
Correct. So now Karmania FPL in the chat makes a good point. He says that free hit should be more valued by the bad assets we can get that week, so you do not stuck with them the whole week. So what we are thinking about it, we are thinking of a wild card around 31, right? To get rid of these guys.
Correct. So you would not be stuck with them. In fact, you would take advantage of having, because look at Aston Villa's fixtures. So coming back to what LR was talking about, let's look at the fixtures around. Everyone has Villa. Maybe you add one or two more leading into 29. If you're not free hitting, you get your Wolves at home. After that, Man City away, Arsenal away, Chelsea, Brentford away, and Liverpool are 5 of the next 7. Now, and 34, you can argue, is Bournemouth at home. But 34, you'll have a double for other strikers like Isak, Højlund. So you can also argue that actually, even though you may have Watkins and may do well, actually just on expected points basis, actually, even then you don't want a Villa attacker.
In terms of the larger argument, I want to know where you guys stand in terms of, you guys were talking about this on the pod with Alon, Pras, where if you're free hitting in a game week like 29, and let's say with a -4 or a -8 until 29, you can get 9 players in place, which is what the reasonable assumption of where the average FPL team nowadays is. Now, the pro is that you're definitely going to gain points on free hit. You're not going to lose points on free hit. You could lose points free hitting in a game week like 34, where the single game weekers that the non-free hitters in that week are owning outdo the probably relatively poorer double game weekers that you're getting. Largely, when you're looking at this, do you straight towards getting a higher positive net, or are you chasing the higher ceiling in a double?
I think you go for the higher ceiling in the double. I mean, again, you can be careful and you can, it's a little bit of your risk appetite and rank dependent and things like that. But I'm picking Højlund over Ollie Watkins, even though Watkins is home to Bournemouth. I mean, that's a good example. Or let's take another one, which is I'm picking Bruno over Saka. If Saka is playing Chelsea at home versus Bruno having a double game week, can it backfire? Of course it can backfire, but it's just a good enough where Bruno has Sheffield United at home and Newcastle at home. You take the upside, but it has risks. So I think that's an important point. If you're debating between free hits on these 2 weeks, blank will definitely give you 15 points upside.
Zoph, where do you stay? Which side of the fence do you stay on?
I think if I like the fixtures in 29, I would look at it. And the thing is, we also look into, like you said, the games for 28 and 30. Now, the fact that Luton play on 29 makes a good entry point for those guys in 28. You have decent fixtures in 30 for Spurs as well, with Luton also. These things play into my thinking a lot. Now, if it was vice versa, where they had difficult fixtures either side, I wouldn't want to buy those players, then I could understand the appeal of the free hit. Because again, it's not the influence it has only in 29. It's how you manage 28 and 30 as well.
Yeah, I do want to add a point to that argument, though. I don't think you need to pay too much attention to 30. We know that, Spurs and Aston Villa have good follow-through fixtures in 30. But I think you can, because by the time 30 starts, we will have a clear idea of what 34 and 37 looks like. Am I right, Pras?
You should have, yeah. I mean, expectation is it could come 30 or 31 or even in the international break in 29. But LR, it's important because 30, Man City also play Arsenal.
I understand that. I understand that Man City play Arsenal, but when you're building a wildcard team, it's one game. Let's say you're going to get 4 or 5 players from City and Arsenal on an average. I think you're capable of working out a good long-term team anyway, if, you don't take 28 and 30 into consideration when building your team towards 29. Like, I think it's fine. I think that little point of wildcarding definitely in 31 and not in 30 is overplayed a little.
That's fair enough.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I would then, so right now we've been discussing free hit 29 or free hit 34 or taking hits right now. I think there's a third strategy, which we haven't talked about, which is basically wildcard a little earlier and you avoid taking all these hits. So somebody would say, look, what you're planning is you're taking a -8 in game week 28. You're taking a -4 in game week 29. So you've already given up 12 points. So
Pause. Plus, I cutting you because I think what our listeners will benefit from when they listen from you is what kind of a double are we potentially expecting in 34? What kind of a double are we potentially expecting in 37? Segueing that into strategy would be a better thing, because
Okay.
why are you not, what are you gaining if you don't free hit in 29? Like
Okay.
that would be a better start of information to give.
So that's helpful. Okay, so can we, Zoph, can we go to Mikkel Talk Vam's chart? So this is an interesting one, which basically gives you the probabilities of these fixtures landing in a particular week, right? So according to him, the Bournemouth double is likely in 34. As I said, Bournemouth one is, there are other iterations that can't be predicted, because this is just purely based on the assumption that the teams that have not played in 29, their fixture moves to the midweek of game week 34, and the teams that make it to the semi-final of the FA Cup, their fixture moves to 37. So that's the basic assumption, but that's not how it works, because TV companies decide what happens. So let's assume that this is what it is. You have Crystal Palace, very likely to have a double. You have Everton, likely to have a double. You have Newcastle and Man United. Now here it's 43%, but the thing is, this assumes it takes into account the probability that Newcastle beat Man City in the FA Cup or Man United beat Liverpool in the FA Cup. I think we agree that that's an unlikely scenario. So let's take into account the fact that, yes, Man United will also have a double, Newcastle will also have a double. So you're looking at Newcastle, Man United, Bournemouth, Everton, Crystal Palace, Sheffield United. That's the double that we're expecting. And in the scenario,
Probably.
but in the scenario in which Man United beat Liverpool, Liverpool is likely to have a double. Or in the scenario that Newcastle beat Man City is expected to have a double. So that 34 becomes into a game week where more likely than not, you don't want their players. And even if a Liverpool or a Man City drops, it's not a bad thing, because then you don't want that team in the bench boost 37, not as much anyway. So you can basically plan your wildcard, if you were wildcarding, to say, I will get these teams. I don't want any of these players outside of this game week 34. Similar logic to 29. And therefore, it becomes a decent window to free hit. Now, the opposite of that is true in game week 37. Where in game week 37, every big team, because they're through in the later stages of the FA Cup, Man City will double, Liverpool will double, Chelsea will double, Spurs will double, Liverpool will double. So then and Arsenal will double. Arsenal, even though they're not through, as I mentioned, because Wolves are through, their game in 34, they cannot double. So the double will actually now happen in game week 37. So you're looking at a team where you just set up a wild card with the best players for the best teams. The value is there, and you can essentially set up to a bench boost, and therefore a free hit window becomes either 34 or 29.
Just to add to what Pras said, right? Like there are a couple of layers to this as well. Now, let's say these big players double in 37. Now, if you're wildcarding around 30, 31, you're going to have a long-term view of getting good players from good teams. Now, Arsenal has a fixture against Chelsea, if it's a single in 34, right, Pras?
It could be. It could also be Wolves, but it could be Chelsea.
City could potentially have Brighton.
It could be, yes.
Yeah. So if you are not free hitting in 34, you're going to have an Arsenal versus Chelsea and City versus Brighton. These are the bets against that you're going to make in the double game week in 34 if you're not free hitting. So if you're sitting there comfortable saying, I'm okay with my Arsenal assets, I'm okay with my City assets, I'm not doubling down and increasing the number of players from these relatively weaker teams that are doubling, that's the sort of weightage that you need to make in your head. But ideally speaking, you're looking to not free hit in game week 37. Now, obviously, there are a couple layers to this, because the title could be decided by 37. Fourth place could be decided by 37. Relegation could be decided by 37. And that means that you're looking at teams that have Europe to focus on or are resting players in 37. But as things stand, we look like we might have a pretty significant title race right till the end. So you're going to, if you're wildcarding in 30, 31, you're by default going to have a large chunk of players that double in 37, which is why it means that you're likely going to free hit in 34. Like this is the loose assumption and
exactly
idea of strategy. Yeah.
Which is why even if you wildcard earlier, the recommendation that we have, and I've seen different strategies and there's no right or wrong, you could also still think about saving the free hit in 29 and you just wildcard earlier with a good team. You get Salah in your team, and we'll talk about 27 versus 28 later, but that strategy still remains where you're just trying to avoid these. You don't want Bruno and Rashford in the middle of setting up a bench boost 2 weeks later, even though they're home to Sheffield United, home to Newcastle, the two worst defenses at the moment in the league. So it's just a nice window as well. And sometimes it's important to talk about this because sometimes people fixate on 29 and say, I'm going to hate what is in front of me. But there is also another nice window coming up.
Yep. Now let's talk wildcard, because now people know what to expect in terms of 34 and 37. So if somebody wildcards right now in 27 or 28, you told me that you think 28 is a better point to wildcard. Why don't you take our listeners through that?
So look, I mean, this week, you have two prime fixtures for the two very good teams, which is basically City have Man United, which is a prime fixture based on last year. Was it 6-3 or something? Haaland hat-trick, Foden hat-trick. So you don't want to lose Haaland this week. You ideally even want to keep Foden this week. You want to keep De Bruyne.
More so based on this year. We are shittier than we were last year.
Exactly. So prime fixture for them. And who do Arsenal play? Sheffield United. So you don't want to lose these 6 players or 5 players, whoever you've accumulated this week. That's the first logic. Second logic, you want to get Salah in because nobody else has Salah, but you don't know if Salah is fit. So if you're building your team this week, it's a little bit more punty, and you're probably compromising on an Arsenal or a City to get these players. You want your Doughty and Taverniers, and you have to fill all these because if you have to get through 29 without a free hit. We will separately talk about whether you should wildcard with a free hit in mind in 29 or not. But the idea still remains that this week is not the best window from that point of view. But it is also true that teams are decimated. Richarlison could be out, Hwang could be out, Solanke could be out, and you could already be carrying a lot of problems. So team dependent. But if you had a choice, what you would do is this week you dead end your team. You get a Son for a Hwang who's injured, or a Richarlison if he's injured, and basically just finish this week off. Next week you go Haalandless, you go Cityless, and you even reduce your exposure to Arsenal. And what you do is you basically plan to get through 28, maximizing 28. So you get 3 Bournemouth, maybe 3 Luton, couple of Bournemouth. You get double, triple Spurs. You get 1 or 2 Villa. That will set you up for that week. By maximizing 28, it'll set you up for 29. It'll set you up for 30. Then you get your Haalands back. You try to get your Saka back if you've sold Saka. That would be a strategy which would basically say that you guys who are taking -8s in Game Week 28, -4s in Game Week 29, I'm not also free hitting, but I'm just going to wildcard 4 weeks before you and gain on the 12 points of 16 points.
And just to add to that, what's going to happen is if you wildcard with, let's just call them shitty players. If you wildcard with shitty players right now to focus on 28 and 29, you're saving your free hit. So what's going to happen is you're likely going to use your free hit in Game Week 34 when these doubles are coming. And Game Week 30 onwards, you're just going to focus your transfers on good teams who are likely going to have doubles in 37 anyway. So good FPL is going to dictate your transfers, where it's going to be a wildcard into shitty players, wildcard, and then transfer out of them Game Week 30 onwards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've shared
You
a
guys
wildcard
considered
draft
it?
here. No, I want to share this draft with you guys. This is from FPL Heritage in our Discord. This is a wildcard 27, and he's planning to save his free hit, not use it in 29. So effectively, I'll just walk through the players. It's a heavy on Brentford, obviously. No, sorry, not Brentford, really. I think Bournemouth, yeah. It goes heavy on Bournemouth, primarily attacking that, and triple Luton as well. Some Arsenal thrown in. But what I worry about this, again, and the same thing I told him, is that, again, Game Week 30, 31, again, you're going to be scrambling to get the guys back in. Your Salahs, maybe your Fodens, etc., etc. That's the main drawback I can see. Why should somebody not wildcard this week, plus apart from the points you just mentioned about it being better next week?
I just don't think it's as good a window because there's, like I said, I think there's better fixtures. Like this draft has one City, right? So you're not maximizing City is good. In fact, I would go without. I mean, you're forced to go Haaland in this draft because of Haaland's game against Man United. Next week, you will just get Tony straight away, or even more Carlton Morris or somebody like that, and leave the funds for Haaland, right? So you're one transfer ahead, and that applies in various positions. You're only going.
Why Pras is saying that is because Haaland plays Liverpool in 28, Haaland blanks in 30, and plays Arsenal in 31.
Blanks in 29.
29 plays Arsenal in 30.
Yeah.
So you don't need Haaland for 3 weeks. In fact, you don't need any City for 3 weeks. Again, I know LR is big on, big fixtures can have goals. So that's your risk appetite dependent. But I'm just saying, to get the maximum out of the doubles, you could get, like if I was wildcarding this in 28, Haaland would become Carlton Morris. Doesn't sound great, but he's got 2 games and he plays in 29. And in 20, so my benefit would be both in 27 and in 28. I would have a second Arsenal defender this week instead of what I have here, which is basically who would I play? Udogi? I'd rather have Saliba, Sheffield United. I'd rather have Foden instead of Barkley or Douglas Luiz this week. So I'm just saying between 27 and 28, there are subtle differences, again, team dependent, that if you can hold, I would really, really suggest next week is better to wildcard.
And in what circumstances should somebody consider using their free hit in 29? We see, like you said, we talked about Pranil's case, we had only 3 players. That sounds like pretty much everyone would have a bare minimum of that. Do you still advocate saving the free hit in that case?
I mean, difficult to give one number, but I would say if you're taking more than 4 hits, I would say max, right, to get through this period, because then you're getting to 16 points that you're giving away to the field. Then you should consider a wild card this week or a free hit in 29, because a free hit in 29, like we said, can also set you up later. Some people are looking at wild card and free hit pair. That I'm less interested in, because I feel it exposes you too much if there's an upset or if a fixture is put somewhere where you didn't expect. And, that just, it's not ideal. So I think both wildcard or free hit are viable if you're spending 4-5 hits to navigate 28, 29.
The thing with 29 is, right, it's like I can pick 10 good attackers. It's just difficult to pick defenders. Like you have to bet on a Brentford to get a clean sheet, or a Villa to get a clean sheet. It's just not convincing. Maybe you get attacking defenders, but like even Luton Forest, right? There are goals there. You don't mind attackers from that game. Like you don't mind punting on cheap Luton strikers or a Barkley or an Elanga or Avoni, Taiwo, for example. So you don't mind that. It's just the defenders are difficult to pick at the moment.
I mean, one thing we should also spend a little bit of time on, and some people haven't played their, or have already played their wildcard, or have. So I think we'll spend time, maybe not now, but at some point, let's also address people without all chips.
It's easy, right? If you don't have chips in place, I think the first place you go are 2 good teams that you don't mind holding in the midterm, and that's Villa and Spurs, because they're quality teams. Spurs at least have good assets all over the place. That's where you go first.
And maybe you can say Luton for the very short term.
Because again, they're right at the top of the ticker now, you see, and these are all good fixtures. Even Tottenham for their attackers is not a bad fixture at all.
Yeah. So I think Luton, Bournemouth to an extent, Spurs and Villa are the way you navigate it through without a free hit, and you're also not screwing yourself too much for the future, because then Luton guys can become the better picks, the Arsenals, the Cities, and like you said, I think that period is easier to navigate, but there's also more upside if you get the wildcard right, because you're pairing that wildcard with a bench boost. Like I worry for people who are wildcarding this week or next week, and they're still hoping to bench boost in 37. You will be spending pretty much all your transfers fixing Luton to City, Luton to Arsenal, Brentford to Isak for the double or something like that. You're not really addressing injuries, and we know how many injuries are happening this season. So you can just there is a scenario in which the 2 biggest game weeks of the season, which could be basically 34 and 37 in terms of point ceiling, you're not as well set up as somebody who's either just wildcarded or wildcarded a little bit before that.
Just talking, long term, if somebody's wildcarding with a view to bench boost in 34 or 37, what you need to look at is these cheap players, who are in your wildcard draft, whether it's the 4th and the 5th attackers, as well as the 4th and the 5th defenders, as well as the second keeper, as well as the 7th and the 8th attackers, what their fixtures look like in 34 and 37. And even if they're half decent single game week fixtures, make them sit on the bench. Like you don't want to be spending transfers in that place. For example, I was just having a scroll through, and Luton have West Ham away in 37, and Bournemouth have Brentford at home, likely in 37. You're okay playing people on a bench boost in that fixture without expecting much, but the benefit isn't great.
You'll take hits by that time, because you'll have Colville who'll have a double. You might have Wolves who have Crystal Palace and Bournemouth at home. You'll do your Bournemouth defender to Kilman or Dawson without even thinking about it, because I mean, hits will come, and people who are wildcarding now will say, look, you guys are hitting now to not wildcard now, and we will hit later. So as I said, I don't think there's one strategy that is so far beyond better other strategies. It just ultimately it'll come down to if Haaland smashes Arsenal, a hat trick against Arsenal, people who basically held on to Haaland instead of trying to get Carlton Morris in Game Week 28, they will win. Was that because of strategy? No, it's just because of how things work out.
Yep.
Even Liverpool.
Punishment.
They
I just
give
want
up
to warn.
points.
It's been the.
They
It's,
give up
it's,
goals. I
it's
think even
been
28, you never know what can happen. City, Liverpool, right? It's all game state dependent.
traditionally City Liverpool is a game full of goals, and Arsenal City isn't a game that has many goals in it traditionally, and you'd probably expect the same. Like City and Liverpool tend to go at each other, have no problems having 4 or 5 attackers from in my FPL team from that fixture. Like I think it's fine. It's the Arsenal fixture is uglier because it's a cagier affair generally.
Yeah.
Anything more on the schedule, or should we talk more now about transfers and stuff for this week in particular?
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about some teams and let's talk about certain football impacts. I think Spurs is a good place to start because generally people are asking and wondering about what Spurs players to go to. Zoph, you sent some interesting images that were all over FPL Twitter today. What was the news from there?
So Richarlison was pictured in the boot room getting ready for training, but not seen in any of the training pictures outside. And they have this program in the gym also where they list all the players' names. Now these are all Twitter detectives. It could be nothing, but the good thing is Ange is pretty transparent about these things, so we should get an update tomorrow. It shouldn't be too bad because you're still seen thereabouts. So it could be just a knock, something just a week out. So we have to keep an eye on that. I think Porto is something possibly a little bit more concerning than Richarlison because he wasn't even seen in any of the training images, even in the boot room at all.
Yeah. And in general, what's your expectation from Spurs? I think I'm pretty hot on them because we saw what benefit Arsenal had from 2 weeks off in the summer, in January, winter, and they've been flying since. You give a manager like Ange with a fairly fully fit squad, 2 weeks off, the amount they're going to work in the training ground. Generally, more often than not, you're going to expect a huge jump in performance, aren't you?
You do, but there was a bit of a slump right before because at the game that I think was just before, I don't remember who they played, Wolves, right?
Wolves, yeah.
So Son had 0 shots entirely. So something in there in the system where they've got isn't really working. What he does with it, maybe sticks Son now back up front. Maybe he decides Richarlison is not the striker. We just don't know yet what could happen because having so many players fit now is something he hasn't had before. Brendan, Dejan, Werner, Richarlison, there's a lot of players.
My point is though, 2 weeks without distraction in the training ground, like I think that's great for any team if they manage to get that.
To Arsenal, right?
Exactly that. It's big for the team. Like I'm expecting Ange to figure out what he needs to figure out. They don't have any games, nothing, no distraction. We saw what happened to Arsenal. It's just my expectations are high from Spurs.
And the fixture this week is quite interesting because Palace's manager, I think, is a far more attacking one than they've had before. I think he will see Spurs also a team they can get at. And they generally like playing with the wing back. So we can expect some space now, more space than we had with Wolves for the likes of Son, etc. So I'm waiting to watch how that team game should be very interesting.
Yeah. And Ange is a manager that reacts, right? Like let's say Son has 0 shots against Wolves. Like Ange is aware that Son is my best finisher. Like he will change tactically to make sure that doesn't happen so that he gets Son closer to goal. I'm just expecting that to happen naturally.
Should we go?
If you were a wildcarder, because let's assist some of the wildcarders, would you go triple attack or would you go 1 defender 2 attack? Spurs.
I think Mado's been a little bit off it, since I probably wouldn't go Mado. Again, it depends on Richarlison's fitness. If Richarlison is declared fit, I'd probably go Richarlison's Son. Pras, do you agree?
I think 2 midfield, while 3 is better short term, which is why, again, dead ending, maybe 3 works. But long term, you want your Saka, Salah's back, right? And Palmer. So 3 are taken. So therefore, I think if you're wildcarding now, you need to think about your long-term structure. So I think getting one Spurs defender like Udogie makes sense. And then you add Son. I'm still thinking if Richarlison is out, you want long-term. You want a guy for until game week 37 now. So I think Maddison, I would just lean towards, but I don't know the budget difference and whether it's affordable or not. But just on paper, I'd maybe be tempted to Maddison over Richarlison.
Yeah, I'd be tempted too. I just think Richarlison with this injury, with Richarlison having competition up front because you have the likes of Werner and Johnson capable of playing on the wings. I don't think Maddison's expected minutes or his first place position in the team is in doubt at all. You got to go back to game week 1 to 10 when everybody was fit. Son and Maddison were the picks. Maddison's also come back from an injury. It's been a month since then. He's looking sharper and sharper. He's playing in the middle of the box. Sleeper pick, ready to explode. Genuinely think he's a sleeper pick, ready to explode.
But just forward thinking, you need to have a structure which has Haaland, Son, Salah. If you wanted to do that, I think people will, and probably Saka. So you have 4 pretty big hitters. Then you're trying to afford everyone else. So I don't know if all of this, and you're trying to have a bench. You can't have 3.8 defender, or you can't have a 4.3 striker. I don't know if Maddison is affordable or not. So I think in a vacuum, Maddison as a third pick may be better, but as a compromise, I think Richarlison is absolutely fine too.
The only thing is expected minutes. Like, we don't know about that. That's the only thing. And your Spurs players are hold for a while then. Like, you get your Saka and all, but you're not going to hurry to sell them because it's Palace, Villa away, Fulham away, Luton home, West Ham away, Forest at home, Newcastle away. Like, until game week 33, it's a flurry of great fixtures. Great for attackers. Genuinely good for attackers.
And then in 36, 37, they probably have a double-double. So even though the fixtures are harder, you'll actually just say, look, I'm going to keep my Spurs guy. So actually, you need to really give some thought to Spurs if you're wildcarding now, because you need them to be glue guys.
Yeah. They're the base on which you hold on and you shift everywhere else around. That's where the budget management comes into play that you talk about.
Correct.
Yeah. I just don't have faith in Spurs defense at the moment. That's my key. They haven't kept cleans, though Baker did mention on his pod that Bentancur has started to play as a 6 now and their defensive performance might improve. That's where we are at the moment.
They have the upside guys in defense though. So you could probably still go. I think Udogie is still quite cheap.
Yeah, the thing is they're not keeping clean sheets though. It's
just Arsenal who are.
Yeah, but like if you're wildcarding, you can buy 2 Arsenal defenders. You can buy a City defender. I'm expecting teams competing for the title to keep it really tight at the moment because every 3 points matter for them, right? So you can maybe spread your funds and spend there in defenses that are capable. Like you and Alon had a discussion, right? Whether going triple defense, Arsenal versus Saka. Obviously, you go Saka now. I'm not going to say anything against Saka at the moment, but there are more reliable defenses that you can go for. That's all.
I've got the numbers from City up here, which you sent me earlier, Ella. So with Stones in the starting 11, 9 games they've kept 5 clean sheets, conceded 4 goals, and without Stones, 17 games, 3 clean sheets, and conceded 22. Big difference now with Stones back.
Yeah. Like if you're picking a defender right now, I like the idea of Stones. Obviously, Champions League, whichever City defender you're picking that's a little reliable, just have to take it on the chin that you get 3 out of 4 starts.
Yeah. Stones is the injury concerns, right? Once the Champions League comes around, you just expect him to get injured at some point.
Did you see his match of the day analysis where he was playing like a 10 sometimes in the previous game? So could be interesting.
They're going to protect him for Champions League. I think him, like Grealish again got injured. I think he's like a Champions League player who holds with Bernardo. You will start to maybe see some patterns with Pep because it worked last year. He almost had his side for the Champions League with certain players, and now the competition is even higher with everybody fit pretty much.
Should we go fixture by fixture? Something to discuss over here. Let's start up with Brentford Chelsea. What was it? The blue £1 billion bottle jobs? Whatever that comment was. Oh, that's going to stick for a while. But yeah, good late win. I think this is interesting because I think it's better than it looked a few weeks ago with all the injuries now Brentford have. We got a bit of a win. I think Palmer's obviously a good play.
I'm going to come to you because I will.
Pardon?
Nkunku's out now again, right?
Nkunku's out for 3-4 weeks, re-injured.
It's going to be the whole Jackson, Palmer, Gallagher, and Sterling or someone like that. Or
correct. But I think he's stopped the whole Palmer false nine experiment now. He decided that Palmer's better out wide.
Does that impact his FPL potential, in your opinion?
I think it makes him better. I don't like him playing it centrally. It's not suited to his game. Maybe against the more technical sides, it does work a little bit. But against a deep block type of team like Brentford, I much prefer him on the right.
Even against
I,
Liverpool in the final, man, he could have scored 2 times. They were two massive chances, and it was both they both fell to Palmer.
I think he's a good finisher. That's just happenstance in my opinion. But I think he's your best player that should play centrally, but not as a false nine. Like I like him as a
But he
10
does
sort of
that
a
already.
playmaker.
When he's on the right, he
Yeah.
pretty much drifts inside the whole time.
Yeah. Because
Because the
Poch is
Gusto is
obsessed
key
with
for that.
playing Gallagher.
Because it's very similar to what we see with Foden and Walker, right? When you have Gusto playing there,
Yeah.
Gusto gets so forward that you have Palmer tucking in.
Fair.
Would you
go
get
with Palmer on one? Yeah, that's the
Same
question. Yeah.
I mean,
Pa-
question to Zoph then, I guess.
Palmer on wildcard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can afford to bench in 29, yes. Because he's again a glue guy. You get him in, we're likely to have 2 doubles. The FA Cup draw is favourable.
100% get him. 2 doubles to
Yes.
come on penalties. I mean, this guy still what is he under 6 million still?
Yes. I think he's fallen
yeah.
by 0.2, but he's 5.7 now.
Ridiculous
Yeah.
price.
And everybody bought Wang. So you probably saw Wang with tunnel vision this week. Now you compare that pick under 6 million compared to what you see of Palmer week on week under 6 million. And there's just no brainer in terms of who's the best FPL pick under 6 million.
Yeah, we have to
It's
talk
just
Wang
Palmer.
replacements. I think that's going
Yeah.
to be a big talking point. Maybe like, up budget and similar budget. Where do you go? And I think as we go through these teams, we can shortlist a few picks.
Yeah.
Move on to
Fulham
Fulham
versus
Brighton.
The
The
only
path.
noteworthy news is Mitoma is out for the season and Enciso is back. So probable punt for later, but Brighton have Europe. That just means rotation at the moment.
Or Pasta Gate.
And Lamptey's
Yeah.
back, by the way. He missed midweek, but apparently he will be back, or at least De Zerbi said he should be back. So I think
It's a
his
minor
229
injury?
becomes.
I didn't know that. I thought
Yeah,
he
it
was
was
out
minor.
for longer.
What do you guys
we-
think about Muniz as a third striker in a 3-5-2 that you can afford to bench for the rest of the season?
I mean, Fulham will have no blanks or doubles coming, right?
Fulham
They're
will have
helpful in 29.
Fulham will have a blank in 34 and double in 37, actually.
Okay. So you're targeting all the way in 37 pretty much for your bench boost, right?
That's actually pretty good, huh? Then he helps you in 29 and he helps you in 37.
Yeah, but problem is Jimenez could be back, and they also signed
There's
Broya.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Broya, they have to, I think, pay him a certain number of games or they incur a penalty. There's this whole thing as well.
The striker spot is going to be very important. Like, people will. There are some very good strikers who are going to put their hand up in the coming run. Obviously, Darwin is one, Haaland is one. Then you're adding other people, at various windows. It could be Tony, it could be Solanke, while Bournemouth's run is good. Højlund for that double. It's going to be tight actually to fit 3. So there's no space to have a cheap enabler.
Okay. No other picks from Fulham. I mean, Anton Robinson is somebody I always fancy to get an attacking return, and you could get lucky with a clean sheet. Outside of that, anybody else?
Not
If you're
really.
picking a defender this week, then you just pick a Bournemouth or a Luton one. Bournemouth if you want to play this week, Luton if you want to just get for the future.
They do have recent follow-up fixtures: Sheffield, Forest, and Newcastle and West Ham between 30 and 33 as well. If you're punting, but they're not convincing enough picks at the moment.
There's only Iwobi and Willian. I don't think either one will go there.
Yeah.
Forest, Liverpool.
Shout out to FPL Chai. He just mentioned, I was talking attackers, I forgot Nkunku and Isak, another couple. So, yeah, good point.
Forest, Liverpool. I think if you're on wildcard and potentially can afford to bench Salah in 29, not a bad strategy at all. Because 30, he's probably going to be the standout captain option.
Him or Son, yeah.
I don't know. His fitness is a bit unclear. Wasn't even in the squad midweek. Only if he's declared fit. The thing is, even if we know he's declared fit, will he start or not? Being the early kickoff helps. I mean, it's not the early kickoff. It's a 3 p.m., but you get the news before that.
All the games are at 3 p.m. So you're going to get news whether Salah's starting or not. If he's starting, I would have him on wildcard.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, you'll have to punt that there's no recurrence or anything, but that's your edge. That's the edge of the wildcard, where you get Salah in place before anybody else, and you bench for game week 29.
And if he's not starting, and if I'm on wildcard, I would punt on an expensive attacker like De Bruyne and earmark that money for Salah in the future. Like you
Cash cow it.
need to cash cow it. That you don't want to spread your funds because you want Salah. So be very careful how you're going to get the most expensive attackers in the game back when you're wildcarding.
Any Forest attackers on the radar as Wang replacements?
No.
Chris Wood doesn't play anymore, so no. I mean, Morgan Gibbs-White is the only one. He's on penalties, gets reasonably forward.
But I think the wingers are getting more chances, right? Ilanga and Hudson-Odoi, the numbers are better.
Yeah. Ilanga had a pretty easy chance this week as well, but his finishing is quite terrible from the last two games. That's what I've seen.
Moving on to Luton.
You don't mind a pun there.
Yeah.
You don't mind a pun.
I don't mind, but I think they're better. I think this fixture is a big one. Luton Villa, and I think if, like, let's say, if I have problems with Richarlison and Solanke, I will probably go ahead and do something like Wang to a Villa mid, because it sets me up for 29 as well. And I think the way the fixtures are now, I might even, in fact, prefer going for Bailey over Luiz, because I watched that entire game last week and Bailey was absolutely on it. I mean, he's been on it for a while, but I think he's 1.7 something XGI.
Yeah. So you're of the opinion that Bailey is a better FPL pick than Dougie Luiz?
What do we say about that?
Controversial.
I mean, I got a lot of retweets, etc. But like, if you saw those goals, it was one cutback and one header of a corner.
So he's had 15 shots in the box prior to, remember we discussed in the pod, right? And he had 2 of them that game week. So effectively, he had like 15% of his entire shots in the box.
Yeah, like I keep saying I didn't mind Luiz as a pick when Kamara was fit, but without him,
but there is definitely enough of a sample size to say that there's a clear home bias now. I think 132 points, he's got around 90 of them at home.
Every single goal has been at home.
Every 9 goals, all at home.
So now we're talking about this game now is away. Then we talk about 29 also is away.
Yeah. Do you think he starts rotating once Europe comes into play?
No,
because
Ajax is an interesting one, right? Obviously, they're a big name, but they're not doing quite well. They're doing quite poorly in the Dutch league. I think a lot depends on how the first leg goes. If they can get a decent advantage there.
And fourth is there for the taking. Like, it's a pretty big deal, and Spurs aren't going to go away easily. So Emery knows he needs points in every game. So I don't know if he can rest too much in the league at the moment. The race for fourth is on.
Managed minutes, I think, will be the most likely thing, your 60, 70 minute appearances.
Emery did mention that he's getting Bailey's a lot more confident, etc. as well. So he's playing a lot more than he did previously.
Plus, what are your thoughts there? Douglas versus Bailey, if you have to go there this week?
I just worry about this Europe thing, and maybe wrongly, but I mean, it's more exciting to have Bailey, but you know that Luiz is going to start, right? I mean, you don't want the guy to miss out. I mean, Ella knew my answer even before I opened my mouth.
There are certain FPL players that are inevitable. Luiz is one of them. Like, it's just that.
It's boring, but it's okay. I mean, he's, you're going to play him 3 games. You're going to, number one, get all 3 games. And there's a chance he gets a pen in one of those 3 games. He's at a level above Bailey for that reason. And he's going to get all the minutes. Bailey could miss one game or play 60 minutes in one game. I mean, Emery takes Europe seriously. So I don't know. I don't want to scaremonger because Bailey is a great pick and it's so fun to watch him. So, but I just think Douglas Luiz is he's inevitable.
Yeah. Fair points. Genuinely fair points. Yeah. And, the good thing about Luiz is he's a bonus monster as well. So it's the Kevin De Bruyne assist syndrome where 1 assist or goal, you add 2 or 3 points to that.
We'll do a ranking of Wang replacements right at the end once we go through some of these guys.
And Ajax is good, right? I mean, Ajax is a team they'll have to take seriously. And the away leg is
before 29, I think.
I think anyway, carry on. I'll check. I think the second one is at home. So I think that is before 29. So before 29,
that's not bad. At least having a home leg at home, second leg at home does help.
Correct. So it helps with the West Ham away. I think West Ham away is a fixture that Bailey starts anyway. It's a tougher game on paper. Correct. He can't afford to rest. But then Spurs is as well. So when does Diaby ever start? Maybe it's just 60-60 or 60-70 kind of thing.
Because the Spurs game sort of becomes a 6-pointer then also.
Yeah, Spurs will be important.
Plus,
And it's a
you
home
own
game.
2 Villa defenders at the moment. How do you feel about them when you watch them, etc.?
Only pain. I got Konza for the first Sheffield United game. I got Pau before the second Sheffield United game, and they didn't keep any clean sheet.
And they both got injured
actually, I
midway through the
got
games.
Pau exactly, and they both got injured in that game, in which I got them, and they didn't make it out to 60 minutes. Look, it was a defensive play because actually, let me go back and talk about my thinking before people judge me for having double Villa defense. They basically, the 2 weeks that Arsenal played Liverpool were the 2 weeks they played Sheffield United. So my thinking was I'll have an Arsenal defender that I can bench for a Villa defender that plays Sheffield United. Exactly. Fixtures. So, and by the way, this still applies because in game week 30, I will play my Villa defenders very happily over my Arsenal defenders who play Man City because Villa play Wolves. So this is the thinking. In terms of rotation, it works well. Am I expecting any clean sheets? Absolutely no. But it's fine. I've got 3 bodies now for 29. Hopefully they're fit bodies because they are injured. But now I saw Konza back in training. I think Pau is relatively okay. It was minor. So fingers crossed that they survive. But if you give me a chance now, if you give me 2 extra transfers, I'd switch to Pau to someone else or Konza to someone else, and I'd get a midfielder instead. I think that would be the play.
Yeah, it's just a shame that we don't have a secure, nailed-on wing back because that's the money position for Villa.
Yeah.
It's just with Europe coming to play, minutes become even more dodgier. So it's just that's the thing. But if I'd still roll the dice on a wing back if I were to, because clean sheets are not coming easy. Pau still has good goal threat, so I don't mind that.
If Dean comes back into the team, there's a chance that he allows Cash to get a bit more forward because usually he likes the 3 centre backs thing when in possession. So that's something we need to monitor. But again, Cash could be out of the team. Cash could be out of the team exactly with Langley playing centre.
Either your player or my player playing in 29. Both won't play.
No, they could both still play. That's Konza as a centre back. Konza Pau centre back.
I doubt he plays 2 marauding wingers. I mean, maybe in game week 30.
Correct.
Let's talk Luton because a few people will be looking at Luton players on their wildcard. People they can play in 28, 29 and then bench for the rest of the season. Where would you go?
Morris, Barkley, Doughty.
So is Adebayo out permanently? Like he really not be back? Like because
he's
everyone
not
is shifted to
He
Morris.
wasn't in the squad this week. Sorry, midweek. Might be in the squad this weekend, but as of now, I think he's a doubt.
Because then Morris is on pens, so he becomes a good pick.
Morris is on pens regardless, right? Even with Adebayo.
He's regardless, but then he's playing further forward, and then you don't have an alternative. So then you pick Morris by default. But I think Adebayo was good because he was actually getting better chances than Morris.
Morris was sort of creating. He was sort of the support striker for Adebayo.
Correct. So I would rank it Doughty number 1 without doubt. Then a striker, if it's Barkley, then fine. Adebayo, then fine. Some people have Kaminsky, which is okay. But because Areola plays in 29 now, and Areola has Burnley at home in that double, I think Areola is just okay. If you are holding on to Areola, then Barkley. I think that's about it, right?
If you're going for the keeper, then you go Neto over Kaminsky, right? I just think I'd feel much more comfortable doing that. If on wildcard, yeah.
Neto and wildcard is like a lock.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to have it.
Because potential double in 30.
A lot of guys looking to bench boosts. I've seen a lot of Neto Kaminsky combinations on our Discord.
Yeah, I don't mind that, because if Pras says that all the good teams are going to have a likely double in 37, it isn't going to be easy to bench boost. Like people that are not bench boosting in 11 might have a premium or a solid 8 million pick over us because we're trying to money manage in Gameweek 11.
It's true.
Right. So we'd move on to the big one this weekend.
What, the biggest hammering this week?
I don't think it'll be that bad, right? We said similar things about the Liverpool game also. Man U Liverpool this weekend because Ten Hag knows when to be pragmatic. I don't think it'll be as bad as you guys are thinking. Maybe 2-3, but I don't think you'll concede 6 like last year.
3. I mean, even expected goals are 3. So that's the baseline. It's not looking good. What can I say?
It's the week where holding De Bruyne is going to pay off. Literally, it's been so frustrating.
Do you hold him? That's what I wanted to ask you guys. Neither of you guys are De Bruyne owners. I obviously am. I'm inclined to
I'm on
hold
De
him rather than
Bruyne.
switch. Oh, you are, sorry, right. So,
Yeah.
I've been thinking about switching him out to Son, but I do want to give him this week, I think.
Oh, it's a prime fixture for De Bruyne. Prime fixture for De Bruyne.
But Son,
And
let's talk about free hit, and all your slots are taken, and you're choosing between Son or De Bruyne. I'm choosing Son this week. I'm not saying you do the transfer, by the way. I do agree you should hold. But Son has a
Yeah.
better, especially if he's playing up top.
yeah. But these
If Richarlison is out, maybe that, but I don't agree that he has necessarily the better fixture this week.
No,
Yes,
but you
and
know what I
we-
mean. Higher ceiling or points potential.
Yeah, because he's a goal
Yeah, but
scorer
De-
versus a creator, right?
Goal versus assist.
But De Bruyne isn't playing as a creator. Yes, he had 5 assists versus Luton, but whenever Pep has used him this season, he's used him as a pretty advanced, almost like a 10.
It
close
depends
to
on
Haaland.
Foden, though.
And
Yeah.
Alvarez.
It's just, and you're gonna. Is the game on Saturday? No, it's on Sunday, right?
It's a Sunday
So I
game.
don't know if
Sunday.
you.
We won't know. He's going to start, but he's going to play the second next to Rodri. That doesn't mean he's not attacking, but I don't.
Yeah.
It's going to be the Brentford De Bruyne where he will be attacking. He'll probably be involved. He'll overlap on the right hand side and create a lot. But it's not going to be the Luton De Bruyne because Foden will exist and Alvarez will probably exist as well.
I don't know, man. Like my memory of City versus United is De Bruyne single-handedly destroying us. Like
He might well.
yeah, like I just think you hold your City assets for this game because it could easily be another 6-goal thrashing. Like we're not good. We're so open in midfield. Like rubbish teams are able to get past us so easily at the moment.
Onana's
And
actually
we're
been
having-
making decent saves.
Yeah, so that's where I
You're
thought
very
about it
negative,
because
Zoph.
yeah.
I don't think it'll be that bad for you. I'm seeing 2-3, not anything too bad. I hope it's much worse, but I don't think it will be.
Yeah. And this time I'm leveraging. Like I've not captained Salah against us, Haaland against us in the past. The most nailed on captaincy this week ever is on Haaland for me.
Even with the Sheffield United projection.
Oh, rubbish. Haaland. Oh my God, I did Saka and rubbish again.
Well, it's okay. Haaland's
was
going to
a
be
bit-
180%. He can blank. It's
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's insurance, right?
Exactly. And by the way, LR, you and I have that story of last season. We didn't captain Haaland for that game, game week 9. And that was one of the
Yeah.
few times, basically, we were talking. I don't say I was influenced, but I was wildcarding, and I thought there's an opportunity to captain Salah.
Yeah.
This was game week 9 last season, Brighton's first game, De Zerbi's first game. And LR just messaged me that this is not how it usually goes when you go against the template. So I went back into my shell very quickly after that and started captaining the template picks again.
Hey man, let's not talk about pain this season. The last month has been brutal.
Let's talk about the West Ham game. In fact, let's talk about Bowen.
Basically, 20 minutes before the deadline, LR says De Bruyne is. I've heard De Bruyne is not starting. These guys leaked it, and he's like, should I hold or not? Obviously, me being, already know my answer. He could come on. It's a blank. Does it need a -8? He's like, I'm not going to get Hwang or anyone. I'm going to get Bowen because Paqueta is apparently back and stuff. I was like, Bowen? And that was the last I heard.
Yeah, man. Okay, I'll just do a little bit of a session, a little bit of a rant, let it out my system, right? Like Zoph is smiling because he's like, why is he not opening his mouth? Why is he not opening his mouth? But like FP has been teaching me life lessons of late, right? Like think of Saka as your partner. And I was bad mouthing him earlier in the day, blah, 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 rubbish, right? So partner is a good partner, listens to feedback. And then when I'm talking about Saka, I'm like, you know what? His underlying numbers look good. His underlying numbers look good. But you don't pay enough attention to what's good at home. And you're distracted by anybody who shows even a little bit of leg. Despite mentioning and understanding that the partners improved, etc., De Bruyne showed a little leg and I went right in there. And that has cost me like 30, 40 points there. FPL has been teaching me pain and tolerance threshold. FPL has been teaching me that when you see somebody who shows leg, you need to keep your wood in the pants. FPL has been teaching me to have courage in my own conviction because I was so close to Bowen. And the X punishment, right? Like for all these, I'm talking about 15 plus point hauls, 5-6 different occasions. So at the moment, I've just become numb. Like Sunday, I watch, endure the pain. The weekdays are more fun than the weekends because weekends are just pain.
But I have to give you this thing that you accepted the error and you went back to Watkins and Saka. Like I didn't know your transfers, right? And then on Saturday I was like, oh shit, Saka and Watkins have scored again. So I went to check your team. I was like, okay, at least he's got them back. So I think
Yeah.
kudos, because I think there was an element of, now I'm just gonna go Trossard, right? Or I'm gonna get Bailey, or I'm gonna avoid Villa, and you could basically really screw up the whole season. Or just say, look, I tried it and it was something different. It didn't work out. It actually worked, 3 times it didn't work out. That's it. I got to go back.
Yeah, it'd be a endless stream of bleeding points because the premium elite picks. And see, when we were talking, objectively speaking, right, when we were talking about Saka 10 weeks ago, he was more peripheral. And post the 2-week break, he's just come a lot more centrally. And it's a big difference. He's right now top 3 pick in the game, and you can't ignore that. So you don't want to stop bleeding points. You tried something, but you got to come back.
You can't be stubborn in this game.
Can't be stubborn.
Which is what is worrying me about Douglas Luiz now.
Yeah, the Huang thing also we need to talk about.
Yeah.
Zoph, you and I. Because you and I I was on, my first instinct was I'm going to dead end to 30. So why would I get Huang? Your instinct was let me get Douglas Luiz. We both, I don't think it was FOMO. I think it was a case of just practically looking at, you don't want to be an idiot saying I was planning for 6 weeks later and this guy comes and scores a brace against home to Sheffield United. And pragmatically we thought, look, there could be an upset in the FA Cup. And we said, look, let's hit what's in front of us. This was a good reminder that sometimes you try to hit what is in front of us, but actually long-term planning could be luckier. I'm not saying right, but could get luckier.
Actually, I was talking to Baker about it. I was thinking about this, right? Like I sold Saka for KDB, etc. Like it's a larger macro point and a conversation to have, because this boils down to game week 1 and pre-game week 1 when we got the pricing. And this is something maybe I didn't register and adjust to, because the pricing's been lenient this season. So it's a lot easier to get better players, right? So the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th attackers that you have this season, quality-wise, are much better than the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th attacker that you had 3 or 4 seasons ago. So the sell and buy attackers that you do, you're actually selling very high-quality players when you're trying to play the game. So the chance to get bitten is just a lot higher. And I'm in my own usual template of making aggressive moves, but realizing that the potential loss on selling a good asset is much higher than it used to be because of the quality of the players.
Right.
Yeah. The ceiling is so high for those guys. Like when you sell them, they can go big on any game.
Yeah. I mean, there was a school of thought that came that if I hit those halls, I would have been 60, 70 points up as well, right? Because you're buying equally good players at that price. Right. But you need to understand that the curve becomes wider down as well. Like there's a lot more that could go against you.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Move on to Newcastle Wolves.
Yeah. Let's address Everton and West Ham, because there's a couple of things I want to mention.
Sure.
For wildcarders, maybe wildcarders should consider Braithwaite as a 5th defender, or Pickford as a 2nd keeper if you're not trying to play the fixtures, because Everton right now Dyche is dishing like he's never dished. Like their underlying numbers look really good. In the last 6 games, they are top 5 for XGC. Dukuru is back, which is good for that team. And between game week 31 to 37, they play teams 12th or below. So the fixtures are looking really good. So if you're looking for a steady, Eddie, cheap, enabling pick that is an easy, comfortable hold, think about Everton defense. Cheap, good defensive picks.
Yeah. I like Tarko then. What's the difference, Tarko and Braithwaite?
Yeah, Brentford tends to get more of the chances. Tarko gets more of the chances.
More of the chances, but he usually lays it off. He's always a target man, and then he usually plays it on somewhere.
And Tarko's a terrible flirter. I don't know if you've seen his YouTube. It is really cringe stuff on Twitter. But anyway, we digress. Look, I think a quick word on Everton. If people are looking to target them, you see the fixture that has moved from game week 29 was the Merseyside derby. And so there is a thought process that logically it should fit in game week 37, because Liverpool will probably also reach the semi-final. But the problem is then that will become the last home game for Liverpool. And in a scenario in which they lift the trophy, they don't want Liverpool to lift the trophy in a Merseyside derby. So this is why that's the logic why people think that it will sit in game week 34. You
34.
want
They will
some
lose.
Everton cover, then Branthwaite or Tarkowski is good as a fifth defender.
What about a Bowen or a Kudus on Wildcard?
Bowen looks quite on it now. I think there were some comments he posted a lot about his ankle injury acting up over the last few weeks. I think Moyes said he's finally over it now.
Yeah.
But it's crazy, man.
So-
He go from nothing. I think he had 0.6 or 0.7 XGI the last 4 games
Yeah.
combined leading up to that, and 3 shots, 3 goals.
Very, very good reason for him to Pack is back, and Pack and Bowen have a good reason, understanding on Wildcard. Kudus is there as well. So the creators are there in that team. And just from an attacking point of view, look at the defenses that he's going to play. Everton, maybe a tough fixture. Burnley in 28. Aston Villa, Highline suits West Ham's counter-attacking ability, in my opinion. After that, got the worst defense in the league, Newcastle. After that, you've got Spurs, who are going to give opportunities to their opposition. Then you got Wolves away. Then you got Fulham in 33. It's a comfortable reign of good fixtures until 33 on a reliable asset who's done it for 2 seasons. He would be very close to being in my wildcard team.
My top rank replacement, if budget isn't an issue,
Yeah.
just go Bowen.
Yeah.
So close yet so far.
Sorry?
So close yet so far.
Yeah, man. These late night kickoffs, when I wake up with such a grimace on my face, yeah. But because I'm not watching the games, no chance. But like it's 1:30 a.m. in India now. But like 10 minutes, and the good thing is it's in the day, so you're getting into work mode an hour after that. So you forget.
Yeah, better not to check the scores when you're up for taking a piss or something, because that will just completely ruin it.
You don't get sleep, bro. So I
Exactly.
stopped doing that. Stop doing that.
I think Newcastle Wolves, in terms of FPL, you play your Newcastle attackers. Defense is still quite rubbish.
Yeah.
If you're somebody who owns a Neto or a Sarabia, start, because Newcastle defense is still there for the taking. Nothing's changed.
It is
at the moment.
definitely there.
27% clean sheet at home.
Yeah.
Look at those odds. I mean, Spurs have
Yeah.
a 35%.
I was watching the Blackburn Newcastle highlights. Blackburn were all over Newcastle, creating chances at will at the moment. So something's up there, man. Something's really up. It can't be so bad. It really can't be so bad. I understand Joe Litton's missing. I understand Burns being taken down, but you can't be from being a good to decent to consistently the worst defense in the league. Like, something's up. I think I wouldn't be surprised if some stories come out where I don't know what Eddie Howe's status is with the pressing.
There's
I
a lot
don't
of
know.
talk
It can't.
that he will go in the summer.
Yeah, it can't.
There
be
is a
this
little
bad.
bit of down tools thing that
Yeah.
you can perceive.
But this does score
So-
goals. That's the thing. I mean, obviously the Arsenal game he put aside, but somebody like Isak on the other side of 30-31 is someone I will look at now.
Isak Gordon free hit 34. Here we go. And Trippier.
Yeah. It's only
That's
34
still
free
there.
hits off.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
I have Trippier this week, and I think I feel a little lucky actually that Hwang, if he's out and Cunha is out, it increases 27 to 27.1. So, I mean, I'm going to play him and we'll just hope for a corner or something.
Yeah. We might be thinking about Newcastle, West Ham, Everton home, Fulham away, Spurs at home. 30. For people who might not want to free hit, it's a good run of fixtures to 34. For
Who do
Newcastle
free hit, you
United.
mean?
Yeah. No, who don't want to free hit in 34.
Okay.
Whether you
Yeah,
free
yeah.
hit in-
So who
yeah.
free hit in 29 and want to dead end to 35,
Yeah.
that they could look
Yeah.
at.
Tottenham
Spurs
Palace.
we already covered.
Yep.
So let's not waste more time on them. Bournemouth, Burnley, we've spoken about Bournemouth.
It all depends on Solanke's fitness. Pretty much the only one we have. My initial feeling, obviously this is completely guesswork, because I think that worst case he'll miss 1 game.
Yeah.
Should have the results of his MRI by tomorrow.
That's my feeling too.
He should be okay. It didn't sound. He didn't he say he was also going to be on the bench?
He did,
And
but he
there
said he
was
wasn't
some-
feeling well. But I don't
and
know by
there was
feeling
some
well, he
element
meant
of-
like, was it sickness
Yeah.
or was it his muscle?
Yeah, feeling last minute also is something that's a little worrisome for me. I learned from Darwin, so I wouldn't veer from Andoni Raiola tomorrow.
If he's
anyway.
injured, I think some wildcards will be deployed either this week or next week. Him and Richarlison
I mean,
are
if
actually the
if he
keys.
is injured for 28, then who's going to be the standout captain? Morris?
Neto.
Neto.
Doughty.
Honestly,
Semenyo, who's going to play striker for Bournemouth.
Keeper captain. Yeah, save Semenyo is actually fine as well.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting. That's why probably I'll go Morris if Solanke is ruled out for next few weeks. I'll probably go Morris.
Yeah, man. It's the ball connection.
He's not really bald.
Yeah. All right. Sheffield United, Arsenal. I mean,
Another 5-0. Oh, actually
Get the-
5-1.
yeah. Just a stat I read on the scout notes, Fantasy Football Scout, link in the description below. 25 goals in the last 6 games. 8 goals were from set pieces. They're averaging like 1.25 goals, set piece goals a game in the last 6 games, and it doesn't even sound surprising. It's crazy, man. They're
At the
get
top
triple
of
Arsenal.
both tables, like, when you see it, I'll just quickly pull up some stats over here. Whenever I see a team at top now for XG non-penalty and XGC, that just shows you why they're legit league
Incredible.
contenders.
And the XGC is 1.88.
In 6 games.
Who concedes 1.88 XG in 6 games? That's ridiculous, man.
Over 6, yeah, aggregate, yeah.
That's 0.3. It's insane.
The number is low enough, people would think you're talking about per game. That's why I had
Yeah.
to confirm. It's actually over 6 games.
Pras, what do wildcarders do with Arsenal?
You'll have to. This is why I don't like this week. You'll have to go for 2 this week, and then maybe sell 1 and then buy them back, or maybe keep and bench over the next 2. Because I don't want to play Arsenal defenders against Man City either. You
Yeah.
could. It's not the end of the
But
world.
you can't ignore
But you
this
could.
fixture.
Yeah, this fixture you cannot ignore. This is why you want your triple Arsenal this week, and then you can get down to even 1 next week if you're wildcarding.
I think Plus is
Like
spot
I would
on.
be open.
I think one defender you can go without. That is probably where you can make the sacrifice.
Definitely. And I would be even okay if somebody's wildcarding next week to say I'm going to have Bowen until 30, and then Bowen becomes Saka in 31, something like that.
A bit higher in budget, and the other 2 that are within the similar price range.
The 2
Son.
names that jump out to me. Go on, Pras.
I mean, Son, if you have the money, it's the money fixture. He plays in 29, Luton in 30, might play striker. I think I would even venture to say he's probably better than a Salah if you were picking this week, even if Salah's starting. But that's my personal opinion, just because of the fixtures and what he has coming up.
I think
But
like
that's
the
on the
Spurs
double
mid,
break,
man.
even Madison, I think if you can't go up to Son, I don't mind moving up to Madison as well.
Yeah, man. The 3 names coming to my mind are Son, Madder, Bowen. Like these are the 3 solid
These
picks
are all
that you
significantly
do.
more expensive. Give me some around the similar price bracket. I think Villa.
Douglas Luiz
Bailey / Lewis.
or Palmer if you've sold and you're free hitting.
But then if you're free hitting, but then again with 29, you'd start being like, nah, I don't really want him for 2 weeks in the
Yeah.
next few.
Kudus also. I don't mind Kudus. We've seen the fixtures. He's still a good pick. Just because he didn't return at the last game doesn't make him a bad pick.
Yes,
Our boy Andreas Pereira, I don't know what he's been doing. I hardly notice him anymore.
I think
Last
I
year he
got-
was such a hero.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the sort of set pieces maybe he's lost, but Iwobi is.
Yeah, and they keep rotating their attackers, right? They've got like 4 or 5. It's like a Bournemouth scenario. They've got 5 or 6 guys and they keep rotating them. Like Harry Wilson could have been a great FPL pick in another domain, but they've got Wilson, they've got Pereira, they've got Willian, they've got Iwobi. They keep rotating these guys all the time.
Maybe Barkley.
Barkley, yeah,
Yeah, decent.
decent.
But if you're
Don't mind him.
playing him this week, not ideal, right? I guess it's okay.
It's not
They're
bad. At
attacking
home,
anyway.
At home,
Yeah,
they
it's not
always
bad.
back them for a goal.
Yeah, fair.
I think within the same brackets, I think it's just Barkley, Luiz, and Bailey, keeping in mind 29.
Yeah. I would have maybe recommended Palace players if Olise or Eze were fit, but they aren't. Because Spurs, Luton, Forest, Bournemouth next 4. If
We
they're
hit
blank in
34,
29.
bro.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these upside guys, they will put their hand up.
Yeah.
Triple
And-
Man United, double Palace, double
Palace has some
Newcastle.
legit options. I forgot the name of their fullback who's very attacking.
Yeah.
Muniz,
Right?
something like that.
Yeah.
No, Muniz is the Fulham guy.
Fulham
no?
guy. But something with
it's a
M.
sim-
I do. Something similar.
Is-
Munoz, maybe.
Yes, Munoz. I don't
Cool.
see him. Yeah, Munoz.
What else? Because captaincy, I guess. is
He
pretty-
he had 5 goals last season, if I remember correctly. So he knows how to attack and score a goal as well.
Captaincy, Haaland.
Yeah, Haaland and if you're wanting to Zach, then Saka.
Pretty much it. Cool. Bus
Yeah.
teams?
What do you guys? I thought of Ollie Watkins when I was looking at the team. What do you guys think of Watkins? Who does he play again?
Luton.
Luton away.
Yeah, I don't mind Watkins also as a rogue shout, but Haaland number one.
Haaland
for
just
me.
scored 5, same fixture, but obviously he's
Yeah.
not Haaland.
Yeah.
But I think we've been consistent to say Luton at home for a team that's not Man City. They've been okay.
Yeah.
It's not a
Yeah.
targetable fixture. Sheffield United away is a targetable fixture because at home they're especially bad.
Yeah. Because they don't
Yeah.
try, they at least try to play expansive, right? But
Correct.
that being said, out of the three teams now, I think Luton are probably the fixture to target because they've decided that we're going to go for it. Sheffield United, like
And
you saw
Burnley.
against Wolves, they were playing for respectability. Very defensive.
Yeah.
They didn't want to concede 3 or 4 rather than win the game. Luton are trying to win games.
Yeah, but you also take into account that Wolves aren't a good team with the ball. They don't know what to do. It's a bit like West Ham coming up against a deep block. They don't know what to do.
True.
Yeah.
Because he didn't get any
Bus
service
team.
at all, Vank. Absolutely zero. That was such a bad pick. Let's forget about it and move on.
When we do bus teams, let's talk about our plans, yeah? I mean,
Yeah.
what are we doing chip-wise? I mean,
Cool.
it's obviously open and things could change next week, but we can do that.
Done. LR, you up first?
Yeah, I've got Keller, Saliba, Gabriel, Gusto, Richarlison, De Bruyne, Foden, Saka, Palmer, Haaland, and Watkins. I've got Solanke on my bench. So I've got a real benching dilemma at the moment. So I'm hoping, I genuinely don't mind one of Richarlison or Solanke missing this game. That sort of makes the benching decision easier for me. And I'm looking to save, is where I am. If Solanke and Richarlison both look injured, then I'm looking at Richarlison to Son, funded by Gabriel to a 4.1 million, by Saliba to a 4.1 million defender that plays in 29.
Options are slim for
But
that. You probably have to go Burnley again.
Some cheap defender that plays. It's a horses of courses 2-week thing for me. That's
And
all.
chip strategy?
It looks like I'm going to get a -8/-12 to field 7-8 players in Gameweek 29, wildcard 31, free hit 34, bench boost 37.
And that's with just 3 players.
Wildcard, and this is just with 3 players at the moment because I don't see the upside. There is a world that my mind changes next week if I see enough picks for 29.
I'm going to talk you to 28 wildcard. I
28
mean,
wildcards.
I'm not saying I'll force you into it, but what I'm saying is if you're taking -12 and putting out 7,
Yeah.
that's like if you wildcarded a week before, you could save the 12 and
Yeah.
have 11. So let's say 2 points per player even, just blank. That's 20
Yeah.
points.
Yeah, right. I'm open to it. I'm open to a 28 wildcard as well. I just feel like it's important to get 30 to 38, and like the ceiling of scoring points over 8 weeks is much higher if you wildcard later.
I'd agree
Yeah,
with that.
all of that is fair, but
'Cause
20 is
to
a
get
lot of
11,
points.
those guys in 29 seems a bit tricky to me who you'd want majority of them
Yeah.
later.
That's the thing.
Plus, this is
Or I could just play free hit in 29, wildcard in 30-31, and then manage 34 something.
that's what I kind
Like
of
that
like
would-
more. I think if you wildcard next
Yeah.
week, you free hit in 29, just have good players from good teams for the other side.
Yeah.
Because, again, if you don't have the double game weekers, at least you still have those good guys. in
Then
those
I want wildcard next week. I've got a decent team right now. I've got Saka, Watkins, Richarlison, Spurs guys. I've got a decent base in place. I'll wildcard 31, because I would feel blindsided not wildcarding without knowing what 34 and 37 could look
That's
like.
true.
Like if I have to manage 34, I need to know what 34 and 37 looks like so I can play the pieces and find a compromise solution against free hitters in 34.
So I
Makes
think
sense.
because going back to the discussion we had two pods ago, because the teams are different that play in 29 versus who double in 34 versus who double in 37, I think
Yeah.
spacing your free hit and wildcard makes better sense to me personally. So like if you if you free hit in 29, you
Yeah.
sit in 31, then you'll have a full view. You just say, I'm going to take maybe a couple of hits because you avoided those hits because you free hitted in 29. I'm going to take a couple of hits, dead end for 34 and wildcard in 35. So I think that may work out better, but I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's not a no-go, but also
Yeah.
think around that. I think that would also work.
Wildcard 35, right?
Yeah.
Free hit
You
29.
basically dead end to 34. You get your
Yeah.
couple of Man United or couple of Palace, and you basically lead up to 34 like that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like it. And free hit 29.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah,
That's
that's
going
a
to be
good idea.
popular actually. Free hit 29
Yeah.
and wildcard 35, bench boost 37. I would actually say that will be the most popular strategy.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong against it. Yeah, we should have actually mentioned it right at the top also as a strategy.
But the only problem is that it's a wildcard very specifically for the double. I guess it all depends how your team shapes up. I feel a wildcard can deliver more value over 7-8 weeks than over targeting it just for a specific double.
But I also like see Zoph, for example, let's say you're wildcarding in 30. By 35, Arsenal are out of the title race and have a Champions League semi-final to look forward to. United are Spurs are out of Europe contention. Like out of that fourth place.
You can react
your
much
focus
more that time.
accurately to teams that have something to play for your bench boost 37 and for 4 or 5 weeks.
It's fair. Yeah, a lot of trade-offs there.
Yeah.
Move on to Pras's team.
Yep, I've got double Newcastle defense, so I don't know what to say. But Dubravka and Trippier, and then I've got double Arsenal defense, Gabriel and Saliba. Midfield Palmer, Saka, Foden, Richarlison, Wang. Wang will become Son, 100%. Watkins and Haaland captain. Solanke's at the moment on bench. I'm actually expecting I'll probably bench Richarlison and play Solanke because I just think Solanke's fine and Richarlison may not be. And even if Richarlison is fine, if he's not training, I'd expect lower minutes, right? I'd expect 60, 65 minutes. So I just think Solanke is good on pen. So that's where I would be, but injury dependent, what we find out. If both are out, I'll play Powter away to Luton. It's fine. So that would be
So you have significant cash in the bank here.
A lot, yeah. I've got 7 million, I think, in the bank, so I can do Huang to Son.
Yep, that's a pretty good move. Sets you up longer term, and now you are on the strategy of wildcard 31 as of now.
Correct. So next week, plan is Trippier to Doughty, Haaland to Carlton Morris, and so that would give me basically 2 Luton and one Bournemouth for the double. I could be tempted to Saliba to Senesi as well. That would become a -8, but that will depend on how I'm feeling for that double itself. Because the Saliba to Senesi move not only helps me get another double in 28, it helps me play Senesi home to Everton in game week 30 as well. So it would be a double move for that. Then game week 29, my plan is basically Solanke to Tony. So then that would give me the 3 strikers, Watkins, Tony, and Morris. It would give me, and I would do
Bowen in probably as well.
Foden to Maddison. So that would give me triple Spurs at attack, and it would give me Watkins, Tony, and Morris. That's like 6 attackers that I'm happy with. Double Villa defense and Doughty. So that's 9, Areola 10. That would be the plan.
Quite decent. Just to mention on Senesi, he's currently on 8 yellow cards. So if he does pick up a booking this weekend, I think he probably goes off the radar because there's a possibility then he could miss the second game in the double.
Correct. So that's a transfer. If you can wait, you just do it next week.
Because I've seen him in a lot of wild cards. That's something you need to watch out for.
Indeed.
But I like the moves. Quite well planned out. I think Echan to Son is an absolute no-brainer.
Yep.
I love it.
Sets you up well. It's my team. Areola. Currently, I've got Porro. I don't think he'll be playing, so Cash will probably sub in. So it's going to be Areola, Cash, Saliba, Gabriel. I'll play Dubravka over Areola probably. Saka, De Bruyne, Foden, Richarlison, Solanke, Watkins, Haaland. Now, if Solanke, Hechan, and Richarlison are out, I'm in a bit of bother. I don't know.
We just got news. There was a tweet from Paul O'Keefe. I just saw it on Twitter. Porro struggling for the weekend and might not make it. Will be a close call on Pedro. Udogi is further along in comparison and training. Richarlison, no news yet.
Interesting. So Porro does sound like someone I can hold for the future weeks. So it's not worth selling him for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens on Richarlison. Doesn't sound too bad again. So again, somebody I'd want to keep. So I think it'll be, most likely Wang out for me. If I can't save a transfer, probably for a Villa mid, I would decide how I feel on that day on Bailey versus Luis.
Don't ask me any questions.
And then future Zoph, you'll need to get rid of the City guys.
Yes. So next week, if I can save a transfer this week, then the plan is next week get Doughty, Morris, and maybe another mid in. Probably maybe even somebody like a Bowen. Something like that for 28.
Yeah, Bowen has Burnley at home next week.
Yeah.
That's great.
Something like that. And then accordingly in 29, then get Tony in. And probably another midsummer. So with that, I think we're taking 2 -4s in 28 and 29. I can get to 11 players, including Kabore. So let's say 10.
It's fine. I think you might even take a -8 1 week. I think 3 hits is okay.
Yeah, I
personally.
think 3 hits is quite fun. And again, the thing is with the Luton guys, right? You enter in 28, you're going to get 3 games instead of somebody like a City guys. So the entry point is good for my Luton guys next week. I'm just hoping somehow Kabore gets back into the team.
Yeah, that's just the thing, right? About like riding your way to 29 plus is that if you're taking 2-3 hits for Luton guys next week, it's fine because you're gaining enough on those hits anyway.
Fair.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's wrap up.
We don't have anything to say. We've
And
discussed
we're all quite
everything. It
tired.
was
We
like
just
No, I'm trying to go through what have we missed.
There's no
I mean,
super chats or any questions as such. I think I've just been going through.
everyone is on their own path now. Everyone is either, on free hit, wildcard, or panicking. But I think, the simple Zen move is just to take care of your injured player and chill. Use that one free transfer, especially if it's for if you have in my space, like getting a son, it opens all options still. Like next
Correct.
week, if there's
It
2
keeps you
injuries, you
flexible.
wildcard. Exactly. So there is this need to have your chip strategy nailed by a deadline. There is no such need. You
Correct,
can
but
chill
it does
out.
make a difference. Like today, if it wasn't an issue, I'd get Palmer. Simple blind pick.
That's
I won't
fair.
even think of the Villa mid. I'd go straight to Palmer. Absolute no-brainer. So it does play a part.
I mean, yes, if you're picking somebody like that, but I think if you're going for I think Spurs is an exception here, where if you can get to a Spurs mid, you're keeping all options open.
Even Villa for that example. Because
Maybe
the
Villa
fixtures
too.
are good. The next 3 games are still good, irrespective of whatever chip strategy you're taking. Next 4, in fact.
even Bowen, for example, still a good buy this week also. Everton away isn't a bad fixture, irrespective.
Agree.
Just a very selfish question. If everybody is fit, Richarlison, De Bruyne, Foden, Saka, Palmer, Haaland, Watkins, Solanke, who do you bench, man?
Similar to me, then I would bench Richarlison. Just the minutes. Because if he's not training, there is something in it. So could be, could be just a sub appearance, and even if he starts, could
But
be
it
a
could also be
60th
something
minute
like
sub.
what we saw with Son early in the season. Doesn't train
Could be.
till the last session and he still plays 70, 80 minutes.
Could be, but obviously you're deciding between all good picks, right?
Yeah, and technically speaking, like if a Werner has trained with the team and they worked on a certain thing for 2 weeks, it's likelier that Son plays central. Somebody like that comes into play right now.
Agreed.
Yeah, fair shot. All right, thanks for being with us. Still, the number of viewers to likes ratio on this podcast is terrible. Try not being lazy and just give us a little bit of a like. We really, really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week. Any last words, boys?
Good luck. Happy planning.
Good luck, guys. See you next week. Bye-bye.